First things first, Platypus Reclayed isn't nostalgia with a sepia filter. It's a full rebuild of a 2002 cult shooter where every enemy, turret, and exploding fuselage is sculpted from actual clay, photographed frame by frame, and lit like a tiny film set. That's the hook, and it's not marketing fluff. When a rotating turret tracks you, it's not a sprite flip. It's a real model turned and shot at each angle with a real light blooming off its edge. In motion, especially on a 4K screen, this looks less like a retro throwback and more like someone let Aardman cook a bullet hell. Under the clay, it's a straight shooting horizontal SHMUP. You pilot the legendary F-27 Platypus, or swap to variants with trade-offs like the T-11 Plover's shield or the unlockable X-18 Wyvern speed and damage. Stage flow is classic arcade. 4 themed areas, each split into multiple levels capped by a boss, a constant feed of enemy formations with jittery patterns, and a weapon roulette system that's deceptively important. You've got a base piece shooter and a steady drizzle of colored pickups that cycle between lasers, rockets, spread, and then, because this series likes a bit of chaos, donuts, sausages, and fish. Yes, firing a wriggling meat salvo into a cruiser is hilarious. Yes, it also matters because certain weird weapons chew through specific boss armor angles better than your comfort pick. Upgrades are temporary and pop off when you take a hit or the timer runs dry, which means the dance is less build the perfect loadout and more route to the next power up like your life depends on it. It does. Here's where the score chasers sit up. Everything you do, chaining kills, snagging coins, gobbling fruit, feeds a meter that pops extra lives when full. That meter is the quiet genius of the design. On paper, Platypus Reclayed is simple. In practice, your survival curve is tied to how aggressively you convert chaos into extensions. There's a pleasant risk-reward rhythm. Push for a fruit chain in traffic and you might tank a shield, but if it nudges the meter over, you buy another mistake later. It's not a modern roguelike meta, it's old-school scorecraft pretending to be cute. Critics are split and the line is pretty clean. The Xbox Hub went full 5-star, calling it one of the best shooters they've played in years, praising enemy variety, the chunky feedback when ships crumble into clay shards, and the just one more run pull even on easy. They also shout out the drop-in 2-player co-op, which is exactly the kind of frictionless couch feature SHMUPs need. On Switch, Nintendo World Report lands at an 8, raving about the authenticity of the stop-motion craft and the inclusion of the original Platypus as a bonus, but calling the gameplay very by the book with occasional difficulty spikes and a readability issue where some background scenery can masquerade as hazards. The Turkish outlet Oyungazer hits a similar 8, applauding new enemies, a fresh area, expanded difficulty including a nasty mode for maniacs, and even mod support on PC, while dinging the near non-existent story and the way longer sessions can feel repetitive. That triangulation tells you what you're buying. A gorgeous, earnest, arcade pure shooter that doesn't pretend to be a deck builder in disguise. Let's talk feel, because that's the part that never shows up in screenshots. The hit feedback is sticky, enemies flake apart as you pour damage, bosses telegraph just enough before dumping screen-wide spreads, and the soundtrack walks that airy, slightly eerie arcade vibe that makes your shoulders tense without screaming at you. Movement is snappy. Threading gaps feels fair when you can parse the foreground from the decor, and that caveat is real. On some biomes, especially busy industrial backgrounds, your brain occasionally tags a clay girderscape as lethal when it's just scenery or worse, doesn't clock a protrusion that is lethal. Adjusting in those scenes is part of the learning curve. NWR is right to flag it, but it's not a constant problem. Difficulty tuning is the other live wire. On normal, expect a curb check by stage 2 or 3 unless you're carrying shooter reps. Easy is actually useful here, not an insult. It trims enemy health and bullet density without killing the score game. There's enough granularity to find a sweet spot between Walk in the Park and Quarter Muncher from 1993, and the ship selection doubles as a difficulty modifier. Taking a no-shield frame on easy keeps your pulse honest. If you want the sweat, the expanded upper modes absolutely oblige. Nasty is an apt label, not a brand exercise. Layer on practice mode for stage study and score attack for single life discipline. And you've got a tidy suite that respects both casual sampling and mastery grinds. Weapons deserve a second pass because they're the personality engine. The bizarre ones aren't novelty. Sausages have an odd travel arc that snakes through tightly packed bomber wings. Donuts chew wider hitboxes and mop up popcorn crowds around turret nests. Fish. Well, fish are fish, but you'll learn why they exist the first time a mini-boss lines up wrong for your laser. Because upgrades drop from specific enemy colors, root knowledge matters. You start to treat waves as resupply stations rather than obstacles, and that's when the game stops being reactive. It's a nice nod to genre history without bloating the UI with timers and meters. You see the icon, you shoot to cycle, you decide in half a second, and if you fat finger it, you deal with the consequences. Simple, arcade. Co-op is the easy recommendation switch. One button to drop in, no ceremony, and it instantly changes the stage geometry because two hurt boxes in tight corridors means calling lanes. The meta becomes you take back, I'll sweep front, don't steal my power up unless I shout. It's chaotic in the way you want a retro shooter to be on a Saturday, and the extra firepower helps blunt the difficulty spikes without robbing them of edge. It's also where the visual craft pops most. You'll find yourself watching your partner's clay carnage flicker as much as your own. So what's the catch? The same catch that splits the reviews. If you need systemic novelty every 15 minutes, this game doesn't morph. It executes its idea with style and then asks you to learn routes, manage upgrades under pressure, and grind scores. That's the assignment. There's no meta progression tree, no unlock economy beyond ships and modes. And the story is literally war between Mongola and Colossotropolis as Claynations, which is charming but wispy. For some that purity is the point, for others it reads as basic. Both takes are fair. Also the hazard readability blips are real. The team's commitment to photographing every element with practical lighting is admirable, and 9 times out of 10 it enhances immersion. That 10th time you'll squint and eat a wall you thought was decorative. Then reload and file that tile away in your memory palace. A few neat extras round out the package. The original 2002 Platypus is included in-game, which is both a history lesson and a fun flex when you want to compare the Claycraft blow-up. On PC, the developers have opened the door to modding, which could be the long tail if the community spins up custom stages or challenge variants. And the soundtrack is full retro arcade, all bounce and tension. The kind of thing that quietly sinks your thumbs to the beat. Price-wise, this is firmly in the no-brainer indie band. You're not paying premium for the artisan clay. Let's plant a flag. Veteran Games take. Platypus Reclayed is a gorgeous, honest arcade shooter that trusts the fundamentals. It's tight, readable most of the time, mean in the right ways, and ridiculously satisfying when a sausage spiral nukes a boss phase and showers the screen in clay crumbs. It's also not trying to reinvent the genre. If you want Balatro-sized meta layers, look elsewhere. If you want a beautifully handcrafted SHMUP that delivers a real challenge curve, nails co-op, and makes score chasing feel modern without losing its soul, this is an easy recommend. If this kind of no BS deep dive is your thing, hitch a ride with Veteran Game and hit subscribe. We cover the weird, the shiny, and the maddening in equal measure. Toss a like if Claymation deserves more love in games. It keeps the algorithm from mistaking us for a pixel farm. I'll leave you with a spicy one for the comments. In a genre built on readability and reaction, do you prefer handcrafted practical visuals, even if they occasionally obscure a hazard, or do you want sterile clarity at the cost of personality? And for the high score sickos, what's your go-to weapon cycle when the screen goes spicy? Disciplined laser control or full sausage chaos?